So I just said, you know what? I'm going to add a little bit more in there today. So today, you know what? What I'm doing today. Oh, wow. Today's been an interesting day. But because of what the Lord gave me, I said, oh, okay. So today is called Refiner's Fire. Refiner's Fire. I have been refined. Now, I'm going to just say it because I have been refined or redefined. Refiner's Fire. I have been redefined. I have been redefined. I think I've got it right, y'all. But if I haven't, read it. Okay? It's coming from Isaiah 48:10 and Refiner's Fire. Wow. And when it says, and when you read it, it'll make sense. Okay? And it's coming from Isaiah 48:10. Now the songs today, Total Praise, Richard Smallwood. That one, right? Total Praise is one of my favorite. But I couldn't get on the floor today because I was, if I had gone on the floor with total Praise, then I wouldn't be able to get up after Forgive Me, Lord, coming from the Reed's Temple Choir. That one right there. And then Pray, the Brockhorn Ensemble. I was like, whew. That right there, because I'm a worshiper. I love to worship. I love to sing. I'm a worshiper all day long. I love worship. In any form, I love worship. But as we go to Isaiah 48:10, and I'm Amplified Classic, and it says, behold, I have been refined. It says, behold, I have refined you. That's what I put on there. Refiner's Fire, I have refined you. And that's what he said to me. Behold, I have refined you, but not as silver. I have tried and chosen you in the furnace of affliction. Now, as I was going through this, and I did research it, and I did go over it, and I thought about something when it came to Refiner's Fire, because my children's father was a welder, and I thought about refining and welding. Now, I look at it, I always try to look at it in natural and then spiritual. So I look at it naturally. And so when I thought about Refiner's Fire, and I thought about being purified, I thought about metal, silver, gold, and I thought about when he was a welder, he would wear this suit, and they had to wear this big heavy suit, and he would bring them home. He would bring it home sometime, and it would be really heavy, and they had to wear this big heavy suit. And the reason they had to wear it, because when they did welding, the stuff would when they did it would be it would be heavy metal, and then as they welded, it would change into different forms. And as it did that, it says whenever gold is refined, it's done over extreme heat, and the first thing that comes to the top is the dross. In other words, the first thing that comes up is the part that is worthless or is low quality. And the last thing to be separated from it is silver and less precious metal, but still precious, just not as precious as gold. And that metal that they do, like when they're welding stuff, when they're welding things together, they used to make I don't think it was trash cans, but they would weld things together. They used to have to weld heaters or weld things together when they worked at a power company. And they used to weld things all the time, and they used to work in unbelievable extreme heat. And if they didn't wear those suits, the stuff that flew off, if it got on their skin, it would like melt their skin. So when I think about what he said in Isaiah 48:10, it says, shares how God refines us. He says, I have refined you, but not as silver is refined. Rather, I refined you in the furnace of suffering. And it's when I think about that, and when it talks about it, says, what does it mean when God is refining you? As God changes your perspective, you will begin to see less of what is wrong and more of what evidence God's refining work in your life. God brings weaknesses to the surface so you ultimately will be stronger. Now, more like him and more reflective of him. Now, when you think about afflictions, the furnace of affliction, I don't know about anybody else. That doesn't sound good, does it? A furnace of affliction. What does it mean to be purified by fire? In the Bible, the idea of fire or intense heat is expressed by giving us a graphic illustration of God's purifying process. But in most of the Bible versions of this verse, the word test is used to describe the process of God uses to purify our heart. It's the test of life that brings our selfish nature to the surface. Selfish nature. Yeah. Our selfish nature. What could that be? Well, it's not something that we like. What is the scripture about refiner's fire in Isaiah? In comparing himself to these two things, the Lord teaches us a lot about how he purifies us. But who may abide in the day? Okay, listen, y'all. Let me go to Malachi 3:2. Let's go to Malachi, because Malachi don't be playing when he be talking about this. So let's go to Malachi 3:2. Malachi, when I was studying Malachi earlier, Malachi was talking a lot about this, and he says, and this is what Malachi says, and it's a lot. You'll get it when he talks about it, and it starts in the second verse. He said, but who can endure the day of his coming? And who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire, like fuller's soap. Okay, so I'm going to go back to what I was saying. He says, as I was saying, and I'll go to the scripture of what he said. He said, and I'm in 3:2 of what he was talking about. What is the scripture about refiner's fire? That's Isaiah. But this is the comparison of what Malachi said. In comparing himself to these two things, the Lord teaches us a lot about how he purifies us. But who may abide the day of his coming, and who shall stand when he appears? For he is like refiner's fire, like fuller's soap. In God's refining fire, for he will be like a refiner's fire, the laundry soap. He will sit as a refiner, a purifier of silver. He will purify the Levites and refine them like gold and silver. Okay? What is the spiritual refining? Spiritual refining, or a treasures of grace and assurance, wherein are handled the doctrine of assurance, the use of signs in self-examination, how true graces may be distinguished from counterfeits, several true signs of grace and many false ones. Okay, when he talks about that, I'm going to go back to what he said. Okay, because I know that a lot of people are asking what that means. I'm going to go to the third verse, but I'm going to go to Revelation 6, because I know that a lot of people are kind of like, look what you're talking about. So let's go to Revelations before I go to the third verse. Revelation 6, because he's saying that. Because I didn't mean to go to this, but I guess he's saying go to it. Revelation 6, 12 through 17. Revelation 6, 12 through 17. And he says, Revelation 6 chapter 12 through the 17th verse. He says, when he, the Lamb, broke open the sixth seal, I looked, and there was a great earthquake, and the sun grew black as sackcloth of hair. The full disk of the moon became like blood, and the star of the sky dropped to the earth like a fig tree shedding its unripe fruit out of season when shaken by a strong wind. I'm at the 14th verse. And the sky rolled up like a scroll and vanished, and every mountain and island was dislodged from its place. I'm at the 15th verse. Then the kings of the earth and the noblemen and the magnates and their military chiefs and the wealthy and the strong and everyone, whether slaves or free, hid themselves in the caves and among the rocks of the mountains. And they called to the mountains and the rocks, fall on before us, and hide us from the face of him who sits on the throne, and from the deep-seated indignation and wrath of the Lamb. The 17th verse. For the great day of his wrath, vengeance, retribution, indignation has come, and who is able to stand before it? Now, this is from Malachi. This is all this came from Malachi. Go back to Malachi, the 3rd chapter. Go back to the Old Testament, because we was just in the New. Now go back to Malachi. Listen, I don't know. Let's just keep Malachi 3, 3rd verse. Okay. Now the 3rd verse. Now we just talked about Fuller's soap. Let's go to the 2nd verse up at the top. Now we read Revelations 12 through 17. 6th chapter, 12 through the 17th verse. I'm going to go back to Malachi 3 and 2. But who can endure the day of his coming? And who can stand when he appears? For he is like a refiner's fire, like a fuller's soap. He will sit as a refiner and a purifier of silver, and he will purify the priest, the son of Levi, and refine like gold and silver, that they may offer to the Lord offerings in righteousness. Now, remember, I told you, refiner's fire, I have redefined you. That was the subject, okay? Now remember, you asked, what is spiritual refining? Spiritual refining, remember, I already described it. Okay, now let's go to what is the Proverbs of refining. God, the Proverbs 27 and 21. Let's go to 27 and 21. I'd rather take each scripture, not describe nothing, just Proverbs 27, 21.